Good evening, everyone. I am Mrigank Sharad, Assistant Professor in the School of Rajendra Mishra School of Engineering Entrepreneurship, IIT Kharagpur. Today, we have the last day of lectures in this special lecture series on innovation and entrepreneurship opportunities post-COVID. And today we have a session on social entrepreneurship opportunities, which I will be presenting jointly with Professor Partha Pratim, the head of our school. So I will be covering the essentials of social entrepreneurship, the fundamentals, principles, the definitions, the essentials of the business models involved in social entrepreneurship. Following that, I will be describing certain major sectors in India, why India needs social entrepreneurship, and what are the major sectors where interventions are required. I will be going through the challenges, the opportunities, and the ongoing efforts of social entrepreneurs in each of these sectors very briefly. And towards the second half of the session, we will have a slightly more elaborate discussion on social entrepreneurship in the education sector, which is so very important for the development of country's manpower and growth. So Professor Das will be discussing some initiatives, some government initiatives, some opportunities for startups, challenges that we face in this sector in the second half of the session. And following that, we will have a question and answer session. So let's get started. So what is social entrepreneurship? What are we talking about? So social entrepreneurship, as you see, is the process of recognizing and resourcefully pursuing opportunities to create social value. So here we are talking about creating value. So entrepreneurs are anyway supposed to create value. They are supposed to bring out solutions that address critical problems. But here we are talking about social value. So wherever there are problems, there are gaps, there are inequalities in the society, there are disadvantaged groups in the society. Social entrepreneurs work to bridge that gap. They basically work towards facilitating the disadvantaged groups of society and providing them access to the basic amenities of life. So how do we contrast these two? Entrepreneurship, the general notion, and social entrepreneurship. So in a regular entrepreneurship, a regular entrepreneur will pursue opportunities regardless of the resources that we currently control. So here the main motivation is profitability of the business. We may have a problem statement and its solution, and we need to basically focus on sustainability and profitability of the venture. Whereas in social entrepreneurship, there is an added component, which is the value creation, the social value creation, where we necessarily have to have a component where the disadvantaged section of the society is getting benefit. So there can be different models for social entrepreneurship. It can be non-profit, for-profit, or public sector. So here, specifically, when we are talking about social entrepreneurship, we are talking about for-profit ventures, which are supposed to run the operation, their execution in a sustainable way. And of course, there are other models, like the non-profit model is referred to as the NGO model, which is also very popular in the country. But their model is based on grants, donations. They are not having a sustainable business model. They are basically dependent upon external sources for their operation execution. Whereas a social venture, in strict sense, it should be basically able to sustain itself through its operations, through its business. It should have its dedicated revenue channels, and it should be able to basically grow and scale up itself just like any other startup. So here we can see the major differences listed once again in terms of the values. Social entrepreneurs, they have to emphasize upon the social value. And here the social impact factor is the most critical one, and it must link to directly social issues. So in order to classify as social entrepreneurs, and in order to avail the facilities and opportunities falling under this category, they must comply with the social value norm. So before we really start talking about the sectors, about the problems in India, it will be good to just have a very quick overview of the businesses, the business plan that the social enterprise is supposed to have, and how does it differ? What are the differences, the salient features, and the differences with respect to the regular business plan? So here, if you see the components of the social entrepreneurs business plan is mentioned. So problem and opportunity is the common part, but here we have a mission. So there has to be a social mission. There has to be an objective which the enterprise is trying to solve. And the third point you see here is theory of change. Theory of change means we are going to carry out certain agenda. We are going to execute certain functions through technology, through business, through operation. It has to basically effect in a change. It has to lead to a certain positive change in the society, positive impact on the society. And then, of course, the other parts, the team building part is going to be common. The context here refers to basically the scenario in that sector, the other activities, similar activities, competitions going on in that sector, what other people are doing, what other enterprises are doing, what is the private sector doing, what is the government sector doing, what are the policies given by the government for that sector, which can facilitate or hinder your operations over there. So this is the context regarding that particular sector. Scaling strategy, just like a regular startup, a social enterprise should be able to scale itself. It should be a scalable model. And then after that, this point is very important, measuring the result. This point is very critical. Measuring the result effectively means measuring the social impact. That part is very crucial. So if it has to be basically qualified as a social enterprise, it should be able to quantify. The organization should be able to quantify that this is the social impact in terms of benefits provided to the people. It may be increase in their income. It may be certain resources made available to them. It may be job creation, and so on. And then, of course, the other part, the risk and the financial plan part remain as it is. So just like a regular business has financial plan, we have the risk plan and financial plan. Now, looking at the problem and opportunity part. So just like a regular startup, we need to be targeting a certain sector and identify the problem. What are the issues? What are the root causes? And what are the opportunities? How do we really identify the major opportunities and try to come up with ideas, solutions based on technology, based on business, etc., to solve that, to address that. And again, we will go through several sectors, several major sectors in India, and try to figure out what are the problems and what are the opportunities in those respective sectors, and also take some examples of existing social enterprises in each of those sectors. So this is the mission part, which is very important for social enterprises, and the 4M of mission statements are given. Should be very memorable. Manageable means concise, easy to remember. It should be measurable. Measurable means you should be able to quantify what is the ultimate objective, how many people are going to benefit, what is going to be the exact benefit, what is going to be the value created, especially the social value created. That has to be measurable. And then finally, the motivational part. What is the driving factor? What is motivating us to pursue that social goal? Why that problem is important? This is a mission problem, mission statement. For example, here there is a mission statement for a social enterprise working in education sector, that we want all the children in this country to have good education. That is the mission statement. We want all of them to have access to quality education. Likewise, the second one is about the financial institution, a microfinance startup maybe, which is talking about providing financial access to deprived people. Theory of change, as I said, there has to be a well thought of path. There has to be a vision that this particular activity, this particular enterprise, this strategy of business lead to a certain positive impact. So you can look at the flow chart. Means we have certain activities planned, and there are some outputs and outcomes, and they are supposed to make the impact on society. This is about the theory of change. So an example given over here. This is again for education sector example, and here we can see what are the impacts given. What is the end result given? So it says that it mentions that high quality teaching in every classroom is the most important ingredient, that all students learn at high levels. And we also believe that the current education crisis is so urgent that we need a new generation of leaders in all sectors. And to do that, the direct experience problem is the best to have young people become committed in solving it. Now, what is the theory of change? Based on these beliefs, our theory of change is that if the brightest college graduates agree to teach in high poverty schools for 2 years, then the student they teach will receive a higher quality education now, and those teachers will become lifelong leaders committed to social change. So these are the impact that they are stating. So this is a education enterprise where they are trying to basically enroll higher grade students to teach lower grade students, and thereby eliminate or minimize that teacher student gap, or basically improve the student teacher ratio. So this is a good example where very concise impacts are being measurable impacts are being discussed. Now, looking at the strategy, again, we have to identify who are the beneficiaries. So here we may have customers. So a social enterprise may have customers. For example, you may be trying to help a village. You may be trying to help poor people in a village to establish certain business, and they are producing certain items, certain product, maybe handicraft, maybe some food product, and then you are trying to basically sell it in urban cities. So the city dwellers become your customer who are buying your product, and the people who are producing it in the village, they become your beneficiary. So they may be also, your customer. You may be charging certain things to them to make the business sustainable. It is possible, but there is definitely a category of beneficiary. There is a section of people who are enrolled as beneficiaries, who are getting advantage from your business, and then there are customers who are basically using your product or service. So it's possible that these two are same. It is also possible that these two are different. And then, how do you serve them, especially the beneficiary part, the disadvantaged group? How do you serve them has to be very clear. And what is your program and overall management structure, partnership, collaboration? So in social enterprise, partnership and collaboration becomes very, very important. And we'll see that in several examples because resources are constrained and funding, finances may be constrained. So they have partnership with social, other social enterprises or NGOs to the fullest extent, also maybe government bodies to the fullest extent. Team, as we have for any regular startup team formation here is very important. Context. Context is all about figuring out the scenario in that particular, studying the sector, industry analysis, sector analysis, competition analysis. So there we should know before entering into that sector what is going on exactly. So already we have had a good session on business plan innovations, and I hope you are aware of these aspects like the market analysis, the industry research, and the competition research, so that we know exactly what solutions are already existing and what better can be done. Where is the gap? So for that, analyzing that industry, studying the opportunities, the policies of the government, the gaps, all that become very important. That is about context of that problem. Scaling strategy, as I said, it has to be scalable, it has to be profitable, it has to be self-sustainable. So it is very different from an NGO, and therefore, through your financial plan, through your revenue projections, you should be able to show that, either by reinvesting the revenue into the organization, we are able to scale that organization further and further the services of the organization. So that is very important. And then measuring the results, as I have mentioned earlier, also measuring the impact, quantifying the impact is going to be important. And again, there may be several indicators depending upon the sector you are in. There may be several indicators for measuring that impact. Risk analysis for any startup is important, so it is a common factor. Financial plan, again here, the only differences may be that your revenue channels may be slightly different. You are having a group which is basically the beneficiary group, so you have to make sure that in your financial plan, while you are earning the profit, while you are earning the revenue, you are also able to show that your revenue is translating into tangible benefits for the beneficiary. And also the funding sources may be slightly different. In certain cases, social enterprises may be able to access government grants, or they may be able to access CSR. So, very recently, Indian government has allowed CSR investment in social enterprises or on startups which are working on social issues. So the revenue channels or the input sources may be slightly different as compared to the other. So revenue mix, just like a regular startup, we should have a mix of revenues. We should not have a single channel revenue. So that is also very important. And the other parts are quite common. Sustainability is going to be very, very important. This is, although it is doing social good, but it is important to have sustainability. And the end objective for the social enterprise is summarized in these 4-letter words. Here we should be having the most effective option, lowest cost, because generally social enterprises will be fund constrained. So with the minimum possible resources, how we can basically bring about change, how we can bring about good solution. So that is about also the concept of frugal innovation that we have already seen in one of the sessions. So frugal innovation in terms of strategies, in terms of products, in terms of services may be very important over here. And then solidarity and the today factor means that is as urgently as possible. That means it is addressing very relevant problem timely. Now looking at the scenario in our country, so we know the condition of majority of Indians, the income levels of Indians, the income distribution, how much inequality do we have in our society, and the percentage of people means almost 30% of people living below poverty line. Many of them do not have access to basic amenities. Maybe 40 to 50% of Indians are malnourished. They don't have access to nutritious food. They don't have access to clean drinking water. They don't have access to good quality healthcare, especially those who are living in rural areas. So there are numerous problems. And likewise, quality of education in rural areas. We have job opportunities problems. We have energy issues as well. For example, people may have access to LPG gas cylinders, but they may not have the money to basically take the gas, refill the gas. So there are many issues in different sectors. Whether you talk about food and nutrition, whether you talk about education, whether you talk about energy access, whether you talk about job opportunities. In all these sectors, we have serious constraints. And of course, there is a big gap also between the rural and the urban area. There is a big urban and rural divide. So here we are showing some data presented by British Council. So this slide basically shows us that there are a lot of efforts going on in the country to address problems in different sectors. So this pie chart over here on the left hand side shows the major, basically the distribution of the social enterprise in these sectors. So we see that almost 38% of the social enterprises currently working in India are in the agriculture sector, just because of the sheer importance it has, just because of the sheer scale it has. And then next is the energy sector, and then followed by that education and so on. So agriculture takes the cake here. The majority of the social enterprises are in this sector. And then there are certain definitions over here related to what kind of services they are providing, whether it is ability building, basically providing access to goods, services, etc., or it is basically providing knowledge-based training, education, awareness generation. So based on that, they have categorized the enterprises. So let us go through the challenges and opportunities in all these major sectors that are listed over here very quickly. And you have already taken certain sessions on some of these sectors. For example, we had a very nice session by Professor Mamoni Banerjee on agriculture. Therefore, I'm just going to go through it very quickly. And likewise, healthcare, we had a very good session by Professor Rambabu Roy. So I'm going to scan through some of the important issues, summarize some of the important issues, challenges, and opportunities in each of these sectors quickly. And then we will have a more detailed discussion on the education sector. So talk about agriculture. We have already seen the issues, decline in production. So we have a lot of issues in agriculture related to decline in production. And that is happening because we have very small land holdings, and the soil is getting more and more polluted because of excess and unregulated use of fertilizer. The water levels are going down, nutrition value is decreasing, and there is no guidance for the farmer how to cope with this. The organic content of the soil is decreasing, so the soil is becoming more and more sandy, and it is losing the fertility, and that has a very negative impact on the production. Likewise, lack of infrastructure, so proper storage, transportation facilities, because of which farmers are not able to go for high value crops like horticulture crops. Likewise, access to machinery, access to godowns, access to cold storage, all these issues are plaguing the farmer. Irrigation facilities as well. Many parts of the country are still dependent upon rain-fed irrigation, and in some certain places where there is a good distribution of bore wells, and there is lack of proper water harvesting techniques. Decline in interest. Now, this is a major issue, and there's a very worrying issue. I have experienced this myself. I myself have been working in agriculture sector, and I have seen how in villages, majority of the young generation is not at all interested in agriculture. They are fleeing villages because they don't see any profitable they don't see agriculture as a profitable venture. As a result of that, they are just going for very low paid jobs in any city. They are randomly fleeing the villages in different directions. So that's a serious issue. And because of all these, of course, there are numerous avenues there the social enterprises are acting, where they are trying to help technology interventions in terms of technical training, providing access to low cost technology in terms of maybe technological solutions for your irrigation, technical solutions for the right kind of strategy, right kind of crop growing techniques. So all that is also being provided by some of the social startups, social enterprises. And there are a lot of enterprises who are going into the mentoring phase, where they connect with farmers, they form a society, they form a group, and they provide training and guidance, exactly what to grow, how to grow, what kind of techniques to use so that you can have more profitability. Following that, of course, we have other infrastructure related issues like supply chain, cold storage, provision, transportation, logistics, etc. So we have the post-harvest issues related to, say, any processing facility. So in all these sectors, we have a number of startups which are working. So this pie chart basically shows the summary that, okay, in which sector the social enterprises are working in the agriculture domain. So you can see in the major areas in which the agriculture startups are working. So a good number of them are in the pre-harvesting domain. That means techniques for the agriculture process, and then you have the other avenues where post-harvest, crop cutting, and the allied processes like the dairy and poultry is also being held. Healthcare, we have also seen the issues, urban versus rural divide, and there is a dearth of proper facility infrastructure in the rural areas. Stuck in the rural area. Also, there is a severe problem of malnutrition because of the poverty levels, and then there is lack of awareness and education among the people. And again, financial issues, the insurance issue, whether the access to finance is there or not for accessing right kind of medical facilities, that is also an area where we have a lot of difficulties being faced by rural people. So here we have some major opportunities area where the startups are working, building infrastructure, building devices and technologies to basically facilitate remote access, to facilitate better healthcare. Finance side, we have some organizations working on insurance. We have capacity building programs also. Along with that, we have a lot of educational programs being run by the startups as well, where they basically interface with the rural masses. They connect them online through digital medium with the health facilities in areas. And there are a lot of startups who have worked on applications through which remote monitoring, remote treatment, diagnosis, etc. can be done. So there are n number of opportunities in this area, and Professor Roy has already given a detailed analysis on this. Following that, we have the energy sector. Again, energy sector, we know that our energy needs are heavily dependent upon imports, especially the petroleum side. And there is a big potential of tapping into renewable sources, which is currently, this slide basically gives you the utilization factor. So the highest, the most commonly promoted source of renewable energy in country today is solar, and there are a number of startups, including several startups from IIT Kharagpur, like Sunroof in Delhi, which is operating in the Delhi region and deploying a lot of solar panels. So there, the main, if you look at the gap, means we have huge potential, but only a fraction of that is being met. And the same is true for other sources as well. So definitely there is a big gap, and that has to be met by two models. First is the delivery model, where the technology needs to be developed to provide access to those technologies, those solutions in a low cost way. And second is through through basically providing devices which can be operated through those renewable energy. For example, we may have startups which are providing solar powered lamps, solar powered cookers, solar powered cold storages. So both sectors are there. First, where you provide energy supply through these renewable sources, and second side is where you provide devices which operate with those energies with the integrated solution. So I've just broadly categorized these into two. Skilling is again a major issue, and that is also going to be a part of the education. So I will not be elaborating about it. Professor Das will be covering more details on the skilling, but we have already seen the major impact. Means we have so much, such a big part of the population in the unorganized sector, and they are migrating from cities to from villages to cities, and they are, they don't have any financial security, they don't have resources, and they are at high risk. And there are skilling opportunities being promoted by government, but still the outreach has been very poor, and we definitely need private-public partnership to address this. A large part of the population is still not having access to right kind of credit channels, especially farmers and the unorganized sector. We have just seen the example. So many laborers fleeing from cities to their villages, and they don't needs like food and health. So financial inclusion provide financial help, critical condition, crisis condition, all major. Again, we need financial startups, fintech startups, social enterprises which work on microcredit, which work on providing finances to the big sector. And there are several models. For example, there is a peer-to-peer. So the financial inclusion, again, there are several startups which are working on peer-to-peer lending and microfinance solutions. And there are several other sectors also, like housing. There are some intentions where startups are providing finances. There are some companies which work on assessment and basically there is some fluctuation in the network. I'm sorry about that. I hope I'm still correct. I hope everybody can see the screen. But I think there is some network fluctuation. So, so in the financial inclusion opportunities, again, there are a lot of examples where people have tried to work with local groups with a village level administration to work on microfinance. They have been working with self groups also to create that kind of institution which can basically provide very low sanitation is another important issue, and that we see everywhere in the country. Despite the Swachh Bharat Andolan, Swachh Bharat Mission, there is definitely a lot of gap in terms of waste management, waste recycling, and there is a big gap in terms of being able to recycle the plastic waste in order to basically recycle or produce something useful like manure from the organic waste. So there are a lot of opportunities in this direction, and there are startups working in this area. So there are startups working on sanitation facility, also in waste collection and areas clean, access of water is a major and excellent how and that near water. So there is definitely a lot of scope for intervention here, and there are certain areas like water management, water harvesting, and distribution where startups are working. So I will leave the education task. So I can just give you a quick glance of a bird's eye view of different sectors and what are the main challenges and opportunities in this sector and what the startups are doing. In the next session, with this I come to the end of the topics discussed from my side. Now it's over to Professor Das, and he will be elaborating upon the education sector and opportunities there.
Thank you, Mrigank. Thanks for taking us around the social entrepreneurship and giving an overall view. I just hope that I've shared my presentation. I hope that it is visible and I can be heard. So I'll just check with NPTEL support. Is my presentation visible, sir? Good. So students, let me carry on from where Professor Mrigank Sharad has left on in terms of the social entrepreneurship. And obviously, if we talk about social entrepreneurship, one of the biggest sector that would qualify in terms of social entrepreneurship is the sector of education, or as we say, the educational technology per se. So I will try to, in the rest of the time, I'll try to take you through some of the transformations that have been happening in the sector, primarily, caused by the COVID and its ripple effects. But before I get into COVID, let us just look at this sector. This sector of educational technology has long been felt to have a big need. And for a country like India, it has a deep need because we are a very large population. We are, growing very fast. We are at the demographic dividend, which means that we have a large number of young people coming into our population who can contribute to the economy. And therefore, there's a big need for people to be skilled anytime, anywhere, for anybody. And that skilling is not only limited to the institutional education, but it needs to be some kind of a lifelong education as well. So India for long has been responding to some of the different educational technology means. Naturally, a mainstay, technology means a lot of different things, but a mainstay in the context of education for educational technology basically means embracing very varied forms of digital knowledge, digital learning, digital content, and things like that. So here I just try to, kind of capture as to what this edtech sector has been primarily trying to do. On one side, are things like which we call our libraries or repositories or kind of archives, where you can have a whole lot of digital contents available for access for learning by anyone, anywhere. So this could be accessed in terms of internet, this could be accessed in terms of mobile. On the other side, which is significantly, imperative, which is significantly influence making in terms of educational technology, edtech, which creates social impact, is how do you get educated? So, well, if you still have to only get educated through face-to-face contact, where you go to the school or college or the institution, and the teacher may be using digital aids for teaching, of course that's also a kind of edtech supported learning. But what's more important for a larger scale for a country like us are online education. Online education, where not only you can get yourself assessed, you can do assignments, you can take proctored examinations, you can get certification, and you can actually fill up your transcript. So that's a big picture that you have. And at the end of it, there has to be mechanisms through which you can actually, kind of follow these kind of courses or keep on enrolling for such kind of courses and actually get a degree. So, I mean, till date, if you look into all of these different pieces in India, we have been, doing different things in different sectors, varied forms of digital repositories and institutions, and at national level, varied forms of online courses, classes, SWAYAM, NPTEL, varied forms of MOOCs, even at a smaller scale. Basic credit transfer being available to everyone right now, and maybe we are expecting something bigger in terms of this also. There may soon be actual graduate programs coming from very highly reputed institutes in India, who will have a completely online graduation program and so on. So that's kind of has been the more or less evolving scenario in education. And naturally, if we look at it that, obviously the player in education, so government is traditionally a big player. I mean, education is our fundamental right to education, is our fundamental right. So government is a big player. Government has to provide for that. But at the same time, if we look at then this sector has been significantly played on, influenced by private agencies. I mean, the size of the private sector in education, educational technologies in education is certainly not insignificant. There's a whole lot of private sector players who have been involved in terms of infrastructure, facilities, non-educational services, support services, direct educational services of providing solution, providing learning strategies, learning aids, and so on, and teachers training, whole lot of this. I just hold on. Possibly there seems to be some issues with the audio. Can you not hear me? I'm asking NPTEL. Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Can I continue? Can you hear? And
Yeah. So
now I'm just asking NPTEL. Professor Sharad, it's fine. You have confirmed. Mr. Das, can you hear me? Should I continue, Mr. Das? Okay. So I'll go back and continue on that. Just 1 second. Sorry, students, for this small disruption. There were some technical issues where The NPTEL node was not getting my audio. So I'll continue again from here. In the final video, this will be proper. So we have seen the PPP role, as I was saying, in terms of various of these services, including specialized educational services, teachers training, management, and so on. So there has been this ed tech has been a very throbbing sector in terms of varied requirements, in terms of PPP engagement, and so on. When suddenly, amongst this, COVID happens. And as COVID happens, then certainly a whole lot of realizations dawn on us on both sides of the card. On one side, it reveals immediately a whole lot of prospects because, you know, you cannot go to institutions, schools are closed, colleges are closed, they're still closed. So studying at home becomes a default option. So you start really exploring online education, online systems advantages to the full. You try to work. What they found was kind of astounding. Is 90% had mobile phone, which is a very good picture. I mean, naturally, that's good for the online education. But only 63% could access the online content. Does not really help much of our Indian students. So more of the use of the bilingual communication that's common in face-to-face teaching, face-to-face learning has to be brought into online. It needs more of varied kinds of custom designs because one size fit all kind of pedagogies that online typically follows is not going to be very effective. Lack of proper methods of assessment and so on, trained teachers, etc. Several gaps. I mean, it's not, I mean, what I'm trying to highlight is not that these gaps did not exist or that gaps were not known, but what COVID brought to the forefront, and that's what brings a whole lot of, challenges as well as opportunities to our table, is the fact that they became glaringly evident. So in the last couple of minutes, I'll just take you through a very specific case study that we have been deeply involved in. And it's a National Digital Library of India, which has been involved in transformative educational technology and is also actually, co-branding, co-sponsoring this particular program. So I'll just quickly make my point in terms of the NDLI, which is the ministry's project with IIT Kharagpur from 2015 and has about 4.8 crore contents in different languages and so on. Now, the basic point that I'm trying to make is if you look into how the transformations in education and technology happen. So let's look at a couple of era in terms of the evolution. The first era is, as I say, is if I take, say, of all varied kind of things you need to do in educational technology, if we just focus on the library side, I mean, you certainly need a very good library. You certainly need a very effective, friendly, easily usable, accessible, widely available library. So what did happen in the early days of digital library world? So this is what you have. You have primarily physical books, physical spaces, books, journals are issued and returned. Catalog is a way to access, reference, academic library, public library, very physical spaces where you have them. This is what you had. And I'm trying to show that on two axes, and that is important for the analysis that an edupreneur or a educational technology entrepreneur should be doing is, in this whole thing, what is the kind of planning that has been involved, and what is the kind of disruption that is involved. See, we are talking of solving problems through innovation. And as you have seen through all these lectures, innovation is significantly about disruption. If you continue to do things the way you have been doing, then certainly you don't change things. You have to change, you have to force in, make changes. And that means you have to disrupt. At the same time, any disruption without a proper planning, without a proper, we define entrepreneurship to be the ability to take calculated, risk in the face of the opportunities that you have. So there has to be a good amount of planning. So if you look into that evolution, edtech initially, say at least in terms of say digital libraries or contents, stayed in a low disruption, low planning mode. So that's when this kind of a National Digital Library of India happens. So ministry takes up. 2 years back, the ministry launches this to the nation. You can see the then HRD minister inaugurating this in 2018. And you have a library which is for everybody, everywhere. It's free, it's open, it's inclusive, it has all kinds of contents in all languages to be used for any kind of education anywhere. Can be used on the web, can be used on the mobile. You can just go to Google and say National Digital Library of India, and you are on. It has interfaces in 10 languages, so it kind of includes a large number of students of different languages, 4.6 crore content, more than 30 lakh users. So it's kind of a thing that is trying to kind of liberate us from this domain of the physical, really early digital library, physical library domain to a kind of a evolving digital library domain where the whole approach of the educational technology is, you are doing things by planning. Certainly, you do not want to disrupt a lot of things because you do not want to suddenly go and say that, this is a digital platform and this is only what the students are going to use, or this is what 90% of the students are going to use. You do not want to disrupt any of the systems that you have. So what you do is you work on the technology over a large amount of time. You do a whole lot of fine planning and you come up with very nice solutions. Like you get a whole lot of digital books, not limited to books, multimedia contents, varied kinds of search, browse mechanism. You create access anytime, anywhere, mobile accesses in your pocket and so on. And on top of that, different solutions start happening in terms of distance online learning, MOOCs, flipped classroom, learning management systems, and so on. So you can see that you are growing as a nation. You are growing into your ability to plan better, deliver better, scale better, and you're transforming into your edtech. And as you do that, naturally, a lot of opportunities, lots of opportunities happen in the PPP domain. Now what comes? Now the COVID strikes. So you are on COVID. Suddenly we see we have COVID, we have uncontrollable disruption. So you are on low disruption, you are doing high planning, and now you are disrupted in every possible way. Schools, colleges, everything getting stopped. This has not been planned. COVID has not been planned. It cannot be controlled. So everything is beyond your hand. So how do you react to that? How do you react to it from as an educational technologist? How do you react to it as an entrepreneur? You say, I have to fight back. I cannot stop learning of my kids, learning of my young students because we have to close down schools. So you start making use of more of the technology that you have already built in, make it wider base, make it more focused for taking examination, make it more focused for learning and doing projects at home. And slowly you are, from pre-COVID, you're transforming yourself into an on-COVID scenario of continuous evolution. So now you are working for preparing for your competitive examination. Everything now goes online because you have lost the option of going face to face with your teacher, with your coaching, with your school, with your mentor, and so on. To fight COVID itself, you need to do a lot of research. So you build up repositories, and National Digital Library of India builds up a big repository of COVID knowledge itself. That how to do research on COVID, not only medical research, all kinds of edtech research, all kinds of communications research, agricultural research, and so on. And we can see the effect of that. I'm just trying to show you a case study. So I'm just trying to show that what happens to edtech when you have this kind of disruption. So this is a timeline over about last 5 years, and this graph shows the daily average of document views that used to happen in this National Digital Library of India over the past several quarters. You can see that it's a big, I mean, kind of a flat stuff. And then this disruption happens, and this library responds by giving a lot of content to the students by kind of making them available in terms of school verticals, in terms of engineering, legal, medical, different verticals, so the students can run. And certainly they can see a big surge, and students start responding to that, accessing more and more documents, downloading them, start getting settled in terms of learning through this. So this is a settling part of it. And then the library again brings in another disruptive innovation, brings in the COVID-19 research repository, and you have a very huge peak, as you can see. So I mean, even after so many weeks, so many months, when you see this kind of a change, it's numerically about, while this library used to have about 20,000 accesses, document views every day, now it averages around 100,000, 5 times of that. So what you have seen is, I mean, coming back to our core discussion point, so what you get to see is you had been pushed into you have been working into a comfort zone of high planning with low disruption, because you were not trying to change the system. You were just slowly injecting things. Okay, let's have NPTEL, let's have SWAYAM, slowly do that. It took 2.5 years to introduce SWAYAM. It took more than 2 years to convince universities that, well, whatever you earn as certificate in SWAYAM must be accepted in your transcript with certain regulations and so on. And you are put into a different domain where you have no time to plan. So you go back in terms of your planning at the low level, but you have a high disruption, closure of institutions, you are back home for students, cancellation of examination, conferences are called off, but you have positives in terms of online classes, online evaluation, online conferences. Digital libraries become center of learning. So your whole of the ed tech is transforming very significantly under this COVID impact, and you're being forced to handle a lot of high disruption with low planning. So that's the kind of innovative challenges that takes you. And certainly as you do that, you start looking forward to what will happen next, whether it is, I do not know, when I prepared this slide, I started calling it post-COVID, but it's becoming more and more accustomed to call it co-COVID. That's, well, there's not be a certain boundary where you can say that there was COVID and now there is no COVID. Maybe it's just kind of stays on. But whatever is that, we need to get into a world which is a kind of mix of both. That from low planning and high disruption to we get into the final stabilizing arena in terms of edtech, where you use a lot more of the digital learning of knowledge in action. You provide accesses for all. I talked about the gaps, different kinds of gaps at the beginning. Democratization is something which has been politically talked of. EdTech is the biggest tool through which, and this probably is the biggest time through which you can actually do that, because you can, the edupreneurs can provide the right kind of planning, and under this already happening disruption, where you do not have to be questioned for why you disrupted a system, because the system is already disrupted. The system does not exist. So you are trying to evolve something new, open knowledge, accreditation, open space for interactions, and so on. So that's kind of kind of an experience which I just have been a party to this myself, because I'm involved deeply with this National Digital Library of India, and I thought I would share with you, because that gives a big opportunity to educational technology in general, and COVID is a huge opportunity in terms of that. So with that, I would like to close this presentation. And just before we start the question answer, I will request NPTEL team, support team, to play a small video. We have a short video on how National Digital Library of India has reacted to the COVID crisis. So I'll request them to play that video. So there'll be a couple of seconds of pause for changing over into the video. And once that is the video is over, we'll start on the question answer session. Thank you. Over to NPTEL team.
Our former world, our way of living, went away in a matter of weeks. These are not just lines and numbers. Within these numbers are our loved ones. Within these numbers are our friends and family, our work, our livelihoods. Within these numbers are our people. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary effort. We are the National Digital Library of India. This is our story. Sponsored by the MHRD Government of India, the NDLI's mission has been to create a national knowledge asset, a single-window knowledge repository available in 10 Indian languages that will transcend the barriers of geography and language to deliver quality education and create effective learning environments for students across socio-economic strata. Every year of the NDLI's growth has been a steep and diverse learning curve, where unexpected opportunities brought unforeseen challenges. Standing today, the NDLI has more than 35 million contents delivered through multiple platforms. It has more than 5 million users from across the country, learners of all ages and from all places. When the virus hit India, the NDLI was uniquely placed to digitally unite the world's largest democracy. On 24th March 2020, 900 universities, 40,000 colleges and 1.3 million schools across India went under complete lockdown. As a country of 1.3 billion, we lost not just lives but also livelihoods. At the NDLI, we had not seen darker times. Our actions never felt as important. Unforeseen challenges bring unexpected opportunities. The devastation in the Indian economy called for countrywide adaptability. As gatekeepers of India's knowledge economy, our mission was not just to evolve, but to transform overnight. Our first response to the pandemic was the rapid rollout of the Study at Home segment for schools and universities. A national COVID research resource repository soon followed for students, researchers, and entrepreneurs across the country seeking to hack the crisis. Next, we released exam preparatory for schools, colleges, and entrance exams. We parallelly ran a nationwide crowdsourcing of educational material, social media outreach programs. Our 48 million strong repository was overhauled into an EdTech service platform within a matter of weeks. A feat that would have perhaps been impossible had our motto not been open and inclusive since inception in 2015. Our COVID transformation journey has been driven on the back of day-to-day agility, moving from a repository focus to a service focus. Our resilience in the face of mass closures of educational institutes was met with thunderous solidarity as daily page views grew 5 times to 100,000 and users ranging from school students to educators and lifelong learners started tuning in to #FightBackCovid-19. Public and open access to quality content has always been our core value. At our hour of greatest need, we could open our doors wider data mammoth into an agile, service-based AI platform in a period of 60 days. Our hope is to ride this transformation to further scale and social relevance. The new face of NDLI aims to educate, enable, and empower so that not just a privileged few, but all India can learn, share, and grow despite the crisis.
Okay, thank you, and Pitel, thank you very much. I think both me and Professor Sharad are now ready for questions.
So,
So I would request Sharad to take the questions, and if there's anything that I need to answer, please let me know.
sure. So, first of all, there are several common questions regarding how do we really convert our ideas into startup, and how do we really start a startup basically. And for that, again, I would request you to please register in the form that we have shared. We are parallelly running a very good session for those who are interested in basically translating their ideas to a startup. And we have some accelerator programs also with us who are basically giving some nice modules on the practical issues, like how to really start your company and what are the steps you need to take. So please register there, and we will have definitely a lot of good sessions in the coming month as well. Towards the other question, so there is one question which is very interesting. It says that whether the regular startups, whether they can convert into social enterprises at a later stage. Now, let me tell you, the social enterprise. At what stage does a company get defined as a social enterprise? So when you are going towards an investor, asking for money, there are certain impact investors who are interested in investing in social enterprises. So they are having dedicated funds for social enterprises. So if you are taking investment from them, you have to be committed towards those social goals. You have to basically prove that you are having some social goals. And we discussed several important factors for social enterprises, right? In the social B plan, we need to be aware that we have a social goal and we are able to measure the impact. So the measurability of the impact is very important. So if you are committing to an investor, then of course you have to fulfill that. And of course, there are government plans also. The governments also may have certain grants, certain awards, certain schemes. So if you are applying for those and you are committing for certain social goals and you are getting those benefits, definitely you need to stick to that. You are answerable to that. So a regular startup at any stage, if they decide to basically commit for social goals, definitely they can leverage those opportunities given by government or given by appropriate funding channels, but then they need to stick to the agenda. So yes, a regular startup can definitely at least partially turn into a social venture. They may have certain verticals, or they may have certain certain segment of their team working on the social objectives. That is very much possible. Then there is another question related to language problems. So we discussed that language is an issue in education, and the question is that whether there is a possibility of having startups which address this gap. So yeah, very much. So there are several startups who are in fact working on this problem. I personally know several startups which are working in tribal areas. So the tribal people, they have much more serious language problem, and they can't probably even understand regular Hindi. And therefore, they are working on very, I would say, customized packages for them. They are designing programs for them, modules for them in their own dialect, in their own language. They are training teachers for them also. So definitely there are efforts in this direction, and there are a number of startups catering to local needs. So India being such a diverse country and having such a diverse set of population with respect to language, dialect, etc., definitely there is a big gap, and there is a lot of opportunity for startups, social enterprises especially. And then there is a question on, then I would request Professor Das to answer this question. This is another question from Mr. Uh, Swanand Vaze. So this question is about the educational system. So whether the education system can be considered as social enterprise, because there are partnerships and collaboration between government and the private players. So there is some private uh, public partnership. So can that be considered as a social enterprise?
That's a good question, but I would ask that why? I mean, why are we averse to the private? Private does not mean that they are not social. Of course, it's not only education. PPP is a model for delivering value in almost every sector now. It's whether it is we have. I can give you very concrete examples of we are working through Swachh Bharat, which means ODF being done all across the country, open defecation free areas. So a whole lot of government does not have that bandwidth, that muscle power to do things in the scale that India needs, and the same is very true for education. So the question is, when does it become a social enterprise, or when does it become a social entrepreneurship? Is when your primary value proposition is becomes the benefit of the society. The primary value proposition is not just making more and more wealth. That wealth is not only the money wealth, but the wealth in people, wealth in their upgrade, wealth in their learning, is when you consider some effort to be. So it's not necessarily that all private entrepreneurs or private parties in the PPP should be considered out of the system, because then the government will never have the wherewithal to actually go ahead with this whole agenda of educational technology. That's my take. Over to Professor Sharad.
Thank you, sir. So there are a couple of more questions. There is one question from a faculty, that whether as a faculty we can try our hand at entrepreneurship if you are interested in the social sector, and how to do that. So once again, I would request that you please kindly connect with us, and we are going to have a lot of webinars regarding this. But a short answer is that, yeah, means at universities, definitely we have a lot of resources with us. Means we have our students team who are also enthusiastic about working on nice problems, and we have all the facilities, lab facility, research facility, development facility. So university, I would say, is one of the best places to come up with ideas, explore ideas, develop some prototype solutions or services with the help of very enthusiastic students and manpower that we have. So definitely, as educators, we should take it forward, and we should have, we should try to build teams and take ideas forward, convert them into startups. So I am personally very excited about such opportunities. And definitely, if you want more discussion, please connect with us, and we'll be happy to, help you in this. And then there are, I would say, a couple of more questions which are interesting. There is one question on how you can use software in social entrepreneurship, and how we can basically involve it or accelerate social entrepreneurship with that. So I think this means you're talking about technology intervention. So definitely we have taken a lot of examples of social enterprises which are technology driven. So Professor Das also took the example of digital library, which is again a technology platform. And there, all the platforms, all the content, all the media, all the interactive platform that is being built, that is all technology platform. So that's the perfect example. Beyond that, I gave some examples on the agriculture sector, on many other sectors, healthcare sectors. So ultimately, there is a need of different kinds of technology solutions that may involve hardware, that may involve software, that may involve other aspects of IT along with services. So in the next session, we will have some more discussion when we have a more, I would say, we will take some more examples on application of software and hardware, especially when we talk about local manufacturing, local production of those services. It will become more evident how technology, how software and IT can be also used in social sector. And then again, there are some common questions regarding how to attract investors. So these questions again will get more and more clear when we discuss some of our pitch examples and basically B plan examples in the upcoming session. So those who are registering for the pitch competition, they will have basically some more sessions for pitch training as well as B plan training, where you will get to see a lot of examples, a lot of case studies of very good selected B plans as well as pitch examples in different sectors. So please join us there, and I hope that will give you a very good exposure. So I think we have addressed some of the good questions, and we have several more. And looking at the time, definitely we'll try to address the remaining questions through email. So let us close this session and proceed towards the next module that we have today.
Thank you very much, Professor Sharad.